guys, remember this Rising Star apron with my name tag? Well, we're saying goodbye to it. And hey everyone, my name's Claire and welcome back to Clairified Creations. So you can see I have a star on my apron. If you guys have never seen my face before, I'm Claire, obviously, and I work at Cracker Barrel under the retail sales position. And today I wanted to talk all about my first 30 days working at Cracker Barrel, what it was like, and finally leveling up to that Par 1 status that has earned me my first star on my apron. Breaking news, this wouldn't be a Clairified Creations video without a pop-in. I forgot to mention that when you do get your aprons, I wanted to tell you how long it takes. For your aprons, it typically takes around 3 weeks. I submitted mine on the 15th of July, and I didn't get my apron until August 5th. So around 3 weeks is when you can expect your apron. And another thing is that they didn't tell me you get 2 aprons. 2! Instead of just the one for the Rising Star, you'll get 2 of these so that way you can keep an extra as a spare if you need it. The first thing I wanted to discuss was the PAR program. What even is it? Because as you guys know, when you go into Cracker Barrel, everybody has a different amount of stars on their apron. And that kind of corresponds with experience plus the assessment scores. But we'll get into that later. First of all, let's talk about all of the levels that you can achieve at Cracker Barrel. So the first one is going to be your Rising Star. Your Rising Star is in your first 30 days where you have 0 stars on your apron and it says Rising Star right here instead of the beautiful gold detailing. And this means that you are directly brand new to Cracker Barrel, you've never worked there before, and you're working towards that first star. That's why you're called a Rising Star. So after the first 30 days, you're eligible for a PAR upgrade, which means you're going to be a Par 1, which is what I am. And that means that you're going to get a star on your apron. So there's technically 4 levels, not counting the Rising Star one. There's Par 1, 2, 3, and 4. The Par levels will correspond with the amount of stars on your apron. So I have 1 star, so I'm a Par 1. If you see someone with 2 stars, that means they're a Par 2, and so on all the way up to that 4th level. Like I mentioned before, you have to work a minimum of 30 days at Cracker Barrel, so their start time is when you first go to orientation, all the way up until that 30-day mark, then you'll be eligible to get that first star. And then after that, you'll have to have an evaluation with your manager to kind of discuss your progress over the first 30 days. Now this video is going to be talking all about my first 30 days. Now I'm going to quickly brief over the other PARs. Part 2 is when you work for a minimum of 90 days after you get this first star. So it's not 90 days total. After you get the first star, it resets. From when I was upgraded to Par 1, that means I have 90 more days to go until I get that Par 2 status. And in order to get that, you need to score a minimum of 85% on the PAR exam, which is an exam you'll take online, and it's kind of all about Cracker Barrel testing your knowledge. Then you'll also have to have an evaluation. Par 3 gets a little bit more intense, and that's 120 days after you reach Par 2 status. So after you get your second star, you have to wait another 120 days, and then you can take the assessment. Then you have to score a 90%. So as you can tell, every time you level up, you have to score 5% higher in order to get that Par level. And finally, Par 4, which is the highest you can go up to at Cracker Barrel. So that's when you see all 4 stars lined on the apron. That means that you have to work there at least 210 days after Par 3 to get that final star. And then you also have to get a 95% on the assessment, which means you can only miss 1 question on the online exam. If you miss more than that, then you have to go back and retake it. And then you also have to have an evaluation with all of these stars. So that is basically the PAR program in a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below and I'd be happy to answer them for you. Now let's get on to my first 30 days and what I feel like I've learned and some of my advice for the first 30 days working at Cracker Barrel to get your first star. So guys, I can't believe that it's already here. I am a Par 1 and I am so excited to share this journey with you. My first 30 days at Cracker Barrel have definitely been a learning experience, to put it lightly. From day Day one, going into orientation, I had no idea exactly what to expect. Like everyone, you're brand new to this process, kind of being thrown in there, and Cracker Barrel has their own system. So the first thing I want to discuss is things that I had no idea even existed in the store. So as a retail sales position, you're not just out on the floor meeting and greeting people. You're going to be doing a lot of jobs, which is something that you have to learn and adapt to very quickly. You're going to need to learn how to multitask. So when guests come up to you, you have to know how to respond to them, act quickly, and get all of your jobs done within the allotted time. For instance, I'm typically put on replenishing the candy wall or restocking things, Swiffering, dusting, keeping things hospital clean, especially now because of the virus. You have a lot of jobs to complete and you need to make sure you're managing your time well in order to get that done. Second thing I learned. Guys, you will make mistakes, I promise you. If you're saying you've never made a mistake at Cracker Barrel, you're probably not telling the truth. I have made so many mistakes, but the important thing about these mistakes is that you learn and grow from them. From when I was first put on the cash register, I had no idea what I was doing, especially if you guys have never been on the register before. It's a whole new world. There's so many different instances that can happen at Cracker Barrel, which is something that you kind of need to be aware of. Because Cracker Barrel is both a restaurant and a shop, you know, you're gonna have guests from all over. They're gonna say, hey, pick up my to-go order, or they're gonna ask to pay with a gift card, and sometimes they split the gift card with the cash, and then other times they have to split the checks, and you've got to learn how to do all of that. Now, I don't want to scare you guys. Some people will ask how to put a tip on there and you've got to enter the tip in manually. Some people will give you the tip money after the transaction and say, hey, give this to my server, and you got to go through the system and try and find the server and enter it in, and it's a whole process, you guys. I want to be 100% honest on what my experience has been and just take it as my experience. Don't take this as every single person's because every store is different. Let's talk about some of my mistakes because I want to give you guys a realistic perspective of how I've been doing. The first mistake that I made was inevitably on the cash register. While I was putting in the change amount, a guest handed me 2 quarters and a nickel. And I thought it was a nickel, but it was actually a quarter. So that means I shorted the register 20 cents and I had no way of going back and I didn't know how to fix it. So I frantically tried to figure out the right amount of change because I put it in the system. It was a whole thing, you guys, but I think I got it. But the register was shorted 20 cents, and to make up for that, some people leave extra change at the register, so luckily it covered it. That's mistake number 1. Mistake number 2 was on the phone. So this one guest called and said, tell me about all of your meat options for to-go orders. So I was like, I'm in retail. Me being Claire, I wanted to answer every single question she had, so I was like, okay, we have the chicken, we have the pork, I think, and we have steak. She's like, what else? And I'm like, I don't know. Then she proceeded to ask me about how many pieces the family fried chicken had. And I had absolutely no idea. So at that point, I started making things up. I was like, So I said, I think there's 2, but I'm not entirely sure. Let me check with a coworker. Now guys, I should have just checked with a coworker right before all of this happened. I shouldn't have tried to kind of make my way through it, but I did, and that was definitely a mistake because I don't know if I was telling her the exact right information. Luckily, I think I told her everything the correct thing, but if you're never sure about something, always ask for someone's help. That's another thing that I learned is don't be afraid to ask for someone. Every time I get stuck on the register, and guys, I've been working there for about 8 weeks now, and I still occasionally need some help with registers, whether it's a return or someone gives me something that I am not completely sure what to do with. I call over on my radio, can someone come up to the cash stand, please? And someone will come up and help you. Don't ever be afraid or feel like you're a bother because you're still new and we're all still learning together. Now, the next mistake I made was accidentally ripping up receipts. I'm not sure if this is a nationwide policy around the US, but it is at my store. Every time a guest gives you a receipt, you have to rip it up so that way you guys don't get confused when all the receipts will pile up. And there's been a couple times where I have been kind of confused, and one time I tried to ring up the receipt twice and I had to call someone over because it was saying check not found in the system. I had to get one of my coworkers to go back in the restaurant section, try and figure it out. And after about 5-10 minutes, we figured out, or my coworker did, that I handed them the wrong receipt, and that's why the check wasn't ringing up, because it had already been rung up. This lady wanted to pay for 2 checks, and she gave me 2 at the time, but because I didn't rip up that receipt and throw it away right away, I got confused and I was trying to ring up the same one and it wasn't working. And this poor guest who was standing there, and she just wanted to get out of Cracker Barrel because I'm sure she was traveling and had things to do. She had to wait probably around 5 to 10 minutes trying to figure this whole thing out. So guys, if something is not right or if there's an error message on the system, always double check yourself before you call a coworker up. Make sure that you're not doing anything dumb, because sometimes I have those moments, we all do, but it's important to try and save any potential situations that don't need to cause any trouble for that person or the management team. Next, we're going to talk about working in general. How has my schedule been? Has it changed any? Well, let me tell you, during the beginning, I was only scheduled for 3-hour time blocks during orientation, and ever since then, my hours have gradually increased over the weeks. And I have had my first closing experience, which I think I might save for another video on what it's like to close at Cracker Barrel. So be on the lookout for that. Anyways, my schedule has increased in time hours. The most I think I've worked is 26.5 hours in 1 week, which isn't too bad because I am only a part-time employee. When I first started, the week after orientation, she typically put me on 4-hour shifts, and then it went up to 4.5, and now it's around 5.5 hours on any given shift. So it's not super long, but you do need to realize that your hours are not going to stay most likely at 3 every single time, because that is a very short duration to work, and you definitely want to try and be working longer shifts. Now, I have had a 6-hour shift, which is crazy. After about 7 weeks of working, I finally got a 6-hour, 15-minute shift because I was closing that night, and I got to experience how the employee meal works and everything like that. The 6-hour shifts are definitely a bit longer, but in Tennessee, you have a 30-minute break throughout your shifts. That's another thing I learned. Guys, you will not get a break unless you have a state policy that says you will. So if you're working 5 hours, 45 minutes in the state of Tennessee, you are not eligible for a break. You guys will most likely be able to get water in the back room and take a sip of water really quickly, but you're not going to get a 5-minute break, a 10-minute break. That just doesn't happen at Cracker Barrel. Also, you need to learn to work for fairly long stretches of time without taking a break, so you will be on your feet all the time. The last thing I want to talk about is my overall experience on the floor and with my coworkers. So in the beginning, you are completely unfamiliar with the store unless you go to Cracker Barrel quite often. I hadn't been to Cracker Barrel in probably years, so I was not completely familiar with how the store was even set up, what their displays were. But don't worry guys, over time you'll get more confident in your skills and you'll build product knowledge just naturally. What I was told that has really helped me is making a figure 8 around the store and just kind of surveying what you guys have in stock, some of the things in the back room. You want to try and hit up the main displays and take notice of what we have and how much they sell for roughly. Also, another thing to look at is sales. If you guys know your sales, you will be able to promote it to your guests more easily and confidently. And lastly, I want to talk about the coworkers at Cracker Barrel. My experience with working with everybody has been nothing but pleasant. Every single person that I've met there is so welcoming and very enjoyable to work with, and Cracker Barrel I think is a really unique place because there really isn't tension, at least in the retail store. I can't speak for the restaurant. Everything exists peacefully and harmonically, and I'm very thankful that I've had this experience. Overall, Cracker Barrel has definitely tested me in some things that I have not thought about before. Something that I used to struggle with was going up and talking to people, especially on the floor. I just did not want to do it. But now it's a lot more easy and I'm definitely more confident in my skills. So guys, that wraps it up in a nutshell. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. I'll see you guys later. Bye!